Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Randy here with RTS Mobile, with the Pandemic Corporation and the Sound Alliance, and I am here today with a fantastic Eve Echoes collab video with my good buddy Scipio. He is also known as the Killmark Collectors on YouTube, and he has a fantastic channel. Check out the link to his channel in my description below. He does amazing content, and get on board now. So, in today's wonderful video, we are going to be doing a little bit of almost like podcast style discussion of several hot topics in Eve Echoes today, ranging from armor and shield resistances to shield field modules, armor link, right, blood raiders. We're going to talk about destroyers, drones, Ewar, all kinds of hot topics today. This is a multiple part video, so check out the I guess you could call it the first or part of the content is on Scipio's channel. We are collabing. We've kind of split the discussion into two videos, so I'll have a link for that also in my description. Check that out. Lots of topics, gonna be great. Anyways, give me the like and sub. Enjoy the show. Here we go.
Well, let's keep going because similar to that, the one that, and this is not news, but the one that I think has been, or the ship type that's been most annoying for me to not really be able to fly is the destroyer class of ships. And it's kind of the same thing where you can get into system, find a target, and you're like, oh, I've got this, and then the ship just like laughs at you as it blows you up,
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if you've flown many destroyers or anything like that, but they've got some awesome bonuses, but they're just not workable with their base stats right now.
I'm with you 100%. The saddest part about the most destroyers is almost all of them are slower than a lot of the cruisers. There's only a few destroyers that are faster than cruisers. Like I get it, they're not going to be as fast as a frigate, right? But they're smaller than a cruiser, so they should have some speed benefits. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Destroyers, like you said, have some really cool bonuses. I see some of their roll bonuses, some of their skill bonuses, and it's like, wow, I would love to fly that, And I actually put one of my alt Scipio into destroyer before being devastatingly disappointed.
I've been doing the same thing, man, because I love the Talwar and the Algos. And just the ability to lock stuff down with the increased weapon and point range. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, to your point, they're so slow. I think I was looking at the math, and in order to put a destroyer in between the cruisers and the frigates at the T6 level, you have to give those destroyers about a 30% speed increase, which is just, it's just nuts, I mean, being able to not necessarily speed tank, but at least maintain range if I want to, is the only way that those ships are going to stay alive, because they can't compete with the firepower of the cruisers, and they don't have the tank, to be able to just go toe to toe with them. So they've got to have that speed to be able to control the engagement.
Exactly, and that's the truth of it. And to be honest, there's a few destroyers that are slower than a few battle cruisers. So it's like, let's get it together. Destroyers should be, you want 3 or 4 to kind of overlap with the cruiser kind of Venn diagram there, great. But the rest of them should be predominantly a little faster than cruisers. They definitely need that boost you're talking about. That's a big deal.
Yeah, and I think and I think the same thing with the DPS. Again, they're slightly larger than a frigate, yet they've got the same number of slots in a lot of cases. So, I mean, the Algos, again, I get less DPS with max skills on my Algos than I do with an Incursus running snubs. Right. And it's like, again, I need an extra slot so that I can get that DPS a little bit higher, and I have that ability to take on a cruiser if I want to. And I just need that at this point.
I'm with you 100%. My only thought is an extra slot throws into play. Now you've got to rebalance power grids, you got to rebalance capacitors. It would almost be easiest, if the devs are like, for say, I think you having an extra slot would be the end goal, and I think that's the way to do it. But if they weren't going to go through all that massive rebalancing of the entire ship type, they could do something as simple as just increasing the roll bonuses on damage for destroyers. Like, add in another 20% damage or whatever it is. You can adjust the roll bonus, pretty easily without rebalancing the whole rest of the class, and get to a point where destroyers are better than frigates, and kind of the middle ground like we're talking about.
I would be 100% okay with that. If you gave me a little bit extra damage boost to my drones on that Algos, man, I'd be flying that thing all day long. That would be so much fun.
Make it a little bit faster, a little bit more damage, and I think the rest of their stuff, they have a lot of really cool stuff like you talked about. They have a lot of really interesting bonuses. They have destroyers have a whole Ewar section that gives like bonus to webs, as well as bonus to energy neutralization. But then they don't have the cap to fit, or the speed to really be effective to fit, anything large.
Yeah.
So
well,
there's a lot of interesting theory crafting that we could do with the destroyers if they were a little bit more appealing.
Yeah, and I am able to squeeze some medium-sized modules on a couple of those ships. But, I mean, yeah, to your point, it's like, I'm fine with it being a tight squeeze if you're going to try to really, like, max out and take advantage of some of those energy neutralizer bonuses and some of that. But I do think it needs to, there needs to be something else to help balance out those destroyers so that they're not just, kind of specialized one-trick ponies.
Exactly. They could definitely be a little bit better. And speaking of bringing half of the ship types, all the armor types back into the game, really, I'd almost say at this point, probably closer to 70% of the ships aren't flown at all, because the only destroyers that are flown right now are light interdictors. No one flies any other destroyer for any reason unless they're new to the game and they haven't realized how terrible destroyers are yet.
my alt,
I remember
my alt that's skilled into destroyers right now is very offended, but also slightly agreeing.
No, but that's just it. I made my alt, Little Randy, right? My alt. I made him a destroyer spec originally, and it was like, okay, I was gonna do some cool stuff with the T6, the Ewar destroyers or whatever tier those were. I don't remember.
Yep.
And I was like, yeah, this will be cool. I'll run this sucker. I'll have all this range. I'll be a frigate killer, right? I'll be a little bit tankier than a frigate. I'll be able to web them from long out. I'll be able to neutralize them from long out. Pew pew pew. It was like, nope, I can't even get within a freaking mile of these guys. I can't kill anything.
A decent
now,
frigate pilot will just laugh at you.
Huh?
I said a decent frigate pilot will just laugh at you.
Yeah, exactly. I literally just have him parked in our Care Bears with Guns Sov Citadel. He's just been parked there collecting the daily logins for the past 2 months. Yeah. I was just so upset with how bad my destroyer was that I was like, okay, until it gets buffed, I'm not even going to fly that alt. He's literally just sitting there on a basic Omega collecting skill points and login bonuses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, unfortunately, that's kind of where we're at, right? So... But hopefully they
bring
do
little
something
Randy
about
back. Scipio, let's bring him back.
Let's bring him back.
He wants to play.
Let's start a campaign. A GoFundMe petition or whatever it is. So
bring little Randy back.
Yeah. Well, so Ewar is actually is an interesting use case here as well, because with the current meta, I think to your point, there's a lot of great bonuses and ships that I'd love to fly. But kind of like what we mentioned earlier, it's hard to really fly some of those ships because the meta is that we're sniping people at over 100-kilometer range, yet even with all of the Ewar bonuses and all of that, those cruisers are only able to get to 70 or 80 kilometers. And so I think that for those to really be viable, there needs to be something, I think, to increase that base range of those Ewar mods. Otherwise, again, even if you're getting within 60 kilometers, you're starting to, be able to apply some of that Ewar. There just aren't enough Ewar ships and Ewar mods to make a difference because you're going to be either in your own bubble or you're going to be out on your own island, and you're just going to get popped the minute the enemy realizes what's happening. Yeah,
that's definitely one of the challenges. To get within Ewar range, you're now putting your snipe fit ships at a damage disadvantage because now they're shooting under their optimal, probably halfway through their suboptimal, range there. So you're looking at things like the APOC that's like 105 km, passive optimal range without even popping any comps.
Right.
You're looking at something like that, just dealing a lot less damage and being impacted by that lower tracking speed to get into range to use your Ewar.
Yeah.
I'm definitely with you on that.
Yeah, and I think...
And like you said...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You go.
No, I was just going to say, with that, it's interesting because at 100 kilometers, the tracking range bonus isn't even what I'm worried about. It's that range skill decrease, right? Because, I mean, the angular velocity of a ship that's 600, in a bubble that's got a 600 signature radius and traveling at 200 meters per second, I mean, it might as well just be sitting still. But that accuracy fall off and optimal range reduction is really where those ships could shine, in forcing people to kind of get closer and actually tangle with each other. But again, just you can't do it.
Right. So, are you proposing we keep the optimal range of the Ewar? Because I mean, typically on the T4 frigs, it's what, the 40, 45 range, and then on the T6 cruisers is on the 60 to 70 range, depending your skills. Maybe we keep the optimal at that range, and we just like quadruple the fall off. We just let the fall off hit all the way to like 120 or something. So you can do reduced Ewar effectiveness, but still force the enemy to come closer to you to deal damage.
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, I think the target painter right now has an optimal of like 65 or something like that without any bonuses. So I'd actually like to see most of the Ewar brought up to that level. And then to your point, have the accuracy fall off maybe a little bit more. But because I guess my concern is just that even with a large fall off, even if you're only at 70% at 120 kilometers, which is what you're using, you have to almost have the accuracy fall off basically exactly the same as what the optimal range is, which you can do is not a problem, I guess. But it would just I feel like it just needs to have something to boost those base stats in order for it to really be impactful.
Yeah, no, I think that would be great. I think if we increase the optimal too much, it will maybe cause some other disruptions to the overall gameplay that we probably can't even figure out how that kind of spiderwebs its way through the meta right now.
That's fair.
But I can definitely see something simple like hugely increased fall off radius, making Ewar more effective.
Yeah.
And kind of right now there's nothing to control the range, right? There's no point to even try and control range. Just go sit at optimal and snipe and wait for someone to DC. When the person in the enemy fleet DCs and drifts out of the bubble, you kill them. And that's how most of the fights are these days. The servers are so bad that people are DCing every 30 seconds. If you're one out of those 5 people that DC every 30 seconds is using the squad commander's follow command instead of their own approach command, they might stop approaching by the time they come back, which means they'll be out of the bubble, they'll be dead. So that's really how it works right now. I can see, like you just said, I can definitely see making Ewar range more effective as a way to control the range of the fight a little better and bring it in from way out at the 100-yard line. Let's bring it in a little bit. Let's bring it in to the 50 range where fleet movements will now become part of the skill cap. Like if I'm at 50 and someone rushes me, I better be ready to pop a prop mod command and bolt the hell out of there, or I'm going to be brawled on. If you're sitting at 120, you don't even have to react for the first 5 minutes. You can just watch them move in.
Exactly.
And how many of my videos have you seen that where people come in and we don't even care because there's still 100 out. It's like, all right, they're coming towards us. All right, but focus these guys. And then like 2 minutes later, okay, we're going to move.
Yeah. Well,
let's add some skill layers back to this onion.
Well, and to that point too, even if they do start coming in, by the time that they get to 50 or 60 kilometers, you say, all right, guys, we got our scepter to warp to on the other side of the map. And, you reset and then everybody just goes right back there. So I agree. There needs to be something to close the range of the engagements. I think Ewar could be a great way to do it, especially because there's not a million battleships out right now. Even if you had some Blackbirds flying guidance disruptors to, dampen that range of the Ravens, that are the siege Ravens right now. and that forces the entire fleet to move in. I think that'd be a phenomenal way to kind of bring it back into a little bit more of actual skill, like you mentioned. So,
right, exactly. And you know what? Put some of those bonuses on the destroyers while we're at it.
Hey, I am all for that.
Why do I? Yeah, I mean, destroyers have some cool Ewar. They have a lot of ships that combine web bonus with neutralization bonus or NOS bonus. They have web plus something else at a half decent range. I like it, but let's put some Ewar on the destroyers. There's no frigate Ewar after Tech 4. Why don't we make like Tech 6 destroyer or Tech 7 destroyer? Kind of the next, like the upgrade to the T4 Ewar, the T4 frigate Ewar. Let's make the Tech 6 or 7 destroyers the upgrade to that.
I love it.
Let's add something to
the more destroyers range I can fly, the happier I'll be. So,
yeah, my Alto on dock for once.
Well, I know we're kind of run up on time here, but the last one I wanted to talk about was the drone meta a little bit. I know I'm a big drone player. I love it, especially for PvE content. But I do have to admit that a good drone player, if they know what they're doing in PvP, can hit way above their weight class right now because of some of the mechanics, and specifically about being able to drop drones and, kind of get out of range, or, being able to recall drones and them instantly being invulnerable, as opposed to, if you're shooting at a drone and it gets recalled, you still being able to still have it webbed or something like that and kill that drone before it gets back.
Right. Well, I think you said a couple of good things there. One, drone pilots definitely have a high skill cap compared. I mean, there's a few ships that it's just point and click, right? But drones definitely have a little bit more micromanagement to do, a little bit more things to consider. But on the flip side of that, like you also just said, if you're watching your drones and you're good at keeping your drones alive, you will be able to keep them alive for a very long time. And then it becomes a fight, in these big blob metas. It becomes a fight about who's got more drones in their storage. It's it's to the point where drones, a bad drone pilot will lose all of his drones in 2 minutes if he's not watching them and recalling them. But like you just said, it's almost, I wouldn't call it an exploit, but it's definitely almost an unintended mechanic to be able to make your drones invincible just by hitting the recall button. It's definitely something that needs to be looked at. I'm with you.
I don't mind it being a who's got more drones in the hold, because I think the other thing that does is it raises the stakes a little bit, right? Because if I'm a drone pilot and I'm flying, a VNI that's it's a good ship, don't get me wrong, but it's not a very expensive ship. But I have 100 million in drones, in MK9 drones or whatever it is. That will make me think twice about engaging, or how I'm going to balance that. Do I have enough drones versus if I get popped and I lose all of them, what's the cost there? So I don't mind that mechanic, but it is definitely something that's a little bit difficult to manage, I think, just from a developer standpoint, because I'm sure that's a finely tuned nuance of when it gets recalled and how it applies damage and all that.
Yeah, there's definitely some things that they need to balance out and figure out on the technical end, on the back end there to make drones a little better. I'm definitely with you, and I wouldn't be opposed to continuing with that kind of how many drones you have in your drone hold type battle. And we saw just the other day in the video I'm going to post later today or tomorrow from our station assault. The enemy literally ran out of drones at one point, and it was like they started with a cloud of them, and at some point they ran out and they stopped doing DPS. Like, I got yellow box to my Hurricane Logi, and I don't think I took any actual damage. I was like, I got yellow and red box by the drones when they'd already mostly run out, and I probably had like 10 drones on me. I mean, I was fine. So
let me ask you this: what do you think about the size of the drone hold?
Sure. So, I think, that's a good question, because there's some ships that can hold 150 drones, right? So I guess it depends on the ship. And if we get to a point where drones are not invincible for a good pilot, and they're kind of balanced a little bit more, you may see people start to select ships that have higher drone hulls instead of, better drone bonuses. So I think there's something that the devs could play with there. I think some of the larger ships that can hold like 150, it's ridiculous. That should be nerfed for sure.
I mean, I think even with my VNI, I can.
If you can rock.
I was gonna say, I think even with my VNI, I can hold. I think somewhere around 100 medium drones or something like that is what I did the math for. And it's like, right now it's so big you don't have to make any choices. But I think it would be really interesting if they reduced it to where I had to be very selective about which drones I took, and especially when we're talking about the battleships. If I'm going to load up on large drones, if I'm going to have some medium, forcing players to make some of those choices, I think would be really interesting as well.
I'm definitely with you on that. If you reduce the drone capacity to maybe be like 5 times what the ship can carry, in active drone slots, like maybe each drone tube can hold, 5 backups. Right. You know what I mean? Or 4 backups. I think that would probably change the dynamic a lot, like we just said, and it would make it a lot more interesting. Maybe some ships will have less drone damage bonus, but then the devs can add in larger drone hull bonus. Like maybe that can become a thing that could affect the overall drone gameplay. That'd be
a lot of fun. But well, cool, man. I think that's everything I had at this point. We've been talking for almost an hour here. So I don't know. You got anything else on your mind, or I think we've covered everything that I've been moaning and groaning about.
Sure, I think this was good. It's a nice little almost podcast style, just kind of discussion, and I enjoyed it. And we got to do it again,
for sure,
Scipio.
Man. This was a lot of fun. Well, fair viewer, if you're still with us, thanks so much for joining. We are going to be splitting these 2 episodes up, if you haven't figured that out already. So half of it will be on my channel here at Killmark Collectors. Half of it will be on Randy's at RTS Mobile Gaming. And we will be posting those hopefully in the next couple of days here so that we can get these out. But thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Randy, thanks so much for your time. I know you got a lot going on, so really appreciate you making the time here, and this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was definitely good. Let's do it again.
Yep, thanks, man. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
All right, bye.
All right.